So this is part two of what was learned in Bible conference about what went wrong in the Garden of Eden. So in the first video part when we talk about how Adam failed to provide and protect for his wife, he failed to inform and educate her. He basically failed to lead her properly, you know. Um, we also talked about how Eve was beguiled due to lack of knowledge. And as we read further in the Bible, we see where the Word of God says that for a lack of knowledge, my people perish. So Eve is victim to that from day one. She didn't have enough knowledge to go up against the serpent that would use his knowledge of the word against her so that she could fall from grace. Um, and so we talk about that in the first video, how that manipulation came in. And we also talk about how Adam was not deceived, but intentionally did what he did, knowing very well the consequences of his actions, but he did it anyways. We saw that he didn't lead properly, and we saw that he failed to be the leader, the protector, and the provider, just like most men today. Um, they want to be, I don't know what they want to be. I think they want to be the woman. Or some of them would even go as far as to say a woman cannot tell them anything, but they too refuse to tell a woman something, you know. And so he failed as a husband, he failed as a man, he failed as a provider, and he failed as a leader. Now, when it came down to the nitty gritty of him taking, this is a very big part, accountability for what he did and what he didn't do, even then, Adam failed miserably. Because when the Lord asked him as the leader what happened, the only thing he could have done or said was point fingers, throw the blame, the woman that you gave me. So first he blamed God, and then he blamed the woman. Because he says, the woman that you gave me. So God should take the responsibility for giving him a woman to care for and provide for and to protect and to lead. And that woman was placed in the garden for his benefit. Now, before you can benefit from the woman, as a man, you must put something. You cannot get something out of nothing. So if you never instill anything into Eve, you cannot get anything out of her. Remember, the woman is the multiplier. Whatever you give to her, she multiplies. You give her a grocery, she give you a dinner. You give her a semen, she give you a baby. So if you have a woman around you, you're not leading her, you're not teaching her, you just have her there. And I'm not talking about educational wise, I'm talking about in all areas. You have to mold your wife. And Adam failed miserably at this task. And this was realized in the Bible conference. It was also realized as we discussed further that he failed miserably. That we can see clearly. But he still wouldn't be man enough to say, you know what, Lord, I didn't inform Eve about the serpent roaming around in the garden because I saw him earlier and that he was being manipulative. I didn't quite give her the information that she needed to protect herself, and she has fallen victim to the serpent. He didn't take any accountability at all. And that's how the Lord passed down judgment on everyone involved, even the serpent. Hence is why the serpent don't speak anymore or have legs. Now, as we continue to study, we realize how being weak to the flesh can cause us a generation of sin, shame, and you name it, it can cause it. And so I share on my platform. I share over here on TikTok. I share also on Facebook, and I share on Instagram, and I share on YouTube. This is my way of sharing the gospel and spreading the word, bringing awareness. Because sometimes we do go to church, and with all of the everything with them have packed into the 2-hour service, we really don't get the fullness of the Bible study. And this is why it's better if we do one-on-one conference to study the word, so we can get a better understanding, and don't wait until when we go to church only to hear the word and get the understanding of what it is saying. So Eve was manipulated because she was locked in knowledge. Adam chose to sin because he was weak to his flesh. Big difference. And humanity perished due to the lack of knowledge. Now, as we continue to go further in the story, we see where it got intense and even worse, because they were put out of the garden. Not the putting out of the garden wasn't a punishment, it was protection. They saw it as punishment, but it was protection, because there was another tree that they could have eaten from, which is Christ, the tree of life. And if they had eaten from that tree, after they have already eaten the fruit that they were told not to eat, then the man would remain, humanity would remain in that state, fallen state forever. There wouldn't be any redemption. And so that's why they were put out of the garden, to protect them from eating, because they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And if they had eaten from the tree of life, then the deal would have sealed. So for their own protection, they were put out of the garden so that they wouldn't access the tree of life, which is Christ, that came later through the birthing of children and Christ and God the Father. And so here we are now with a brand new opportunity. We don't have to continue in a state where we're being manipulated and beguiled by the serpent for the rest of our life, for all eternity. Then we now have a choice to continue in the matrix or blind in sin, or we can choose Christ, which is righteousness, another way, and that's everlasting life also, but in the light, in the truth, in a better way, and I don't know about anyone else, but I like the word, and I'm telling you, and this is my confession, it's hard for me to take up the Bible and read. Maybe it's because I read it so much time. Maybe it's because I tell myself that I know. But you just never know enough or know too much, And so I'm encouraging everyone to read and study their Bibles. Get the Word of God into your system, because there will come a time when you don't have access to the Bible, and it's only what you read and have in your heart and your mind, because the Word of God says that there will come a time when the Lord is going to write His Word on our hearts. Yes, so without us reading it, how is it going to be on the heart? We have to have some knowledge so that when the serpent come to beguile, we know how